Hello and welcome to By the Mash Tun, a podcast by a couple of nerds where we brew some beers, drink some beers, and then also just talk about beers. I am Mike Harrison Wood, and with me is Cal Noble.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm alright actually, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, did you have a good time at the Cyancraft 5-year anniversary?
I did, yeah. It was cold.
It was very
Definitely
cold.
a cold day.
It snowed.
Yeah, and I don't know how many of our listeners are in Reading, but you know... Four listeners. So what, it would have been... Well, it's the 22nd of March now.
Yes.
So it was the Saturday before, whatever date that was. I think it was the 20th.
Sounds right.
No, that sounds wrong.
Sounds wrong.
Sounds incredibly wrong. It was the Saturday. Snowy, cold, but it was very good.
Very
good. A lot of people turned out.
Yeah.
A lot of really good beer.
Very busy.
Yeah, it was a really good event.
Yes.
I kind of wish less people had turned up.
They did give out some serious body warmth, though.
They did, but there was also a lot less seatage.
Yes, yeah. We'd brought some games and stuff, and we didn't get a huge chance to play them, but we did have a huge chance to drink some delicious beers.
Yes, we did, and there was a lot of really good beer. And talking about beer, what are we brewing today?
Today, we are brewing a SMaSH brew. Now, a SMaSH brew is a very weird one. It's only a recent invention, but it comes about from trying to pick out in the beer certain elements and really focus on them. So SMaSH stands for single malt and single hop.
Nice and easy.
Oh,
So I like what they've done there. You know, they've taken the words, made an acronym, and it works.
And it's a word as well.
Yeah, and it
Everyone
has the
knows.
word mash in it.
Yeah!
Much like our title.
Yes, smashing.
So, I mean, our title is quite important because we are literally mashing right now.
Yes.
So we've just put our strike water in, we've mashed in the grain, and that's happening, which is why my house currently smells just beautiful.
Smells like wonderful biscuits.
It really does. They're like I like to call it. It's a mashgasm. Like that first smell you get when you're mixing the grain into the water, you just get that hot Weetabix sweetness. It's like
Yes, you
Yeah,
did get
that's-
a big lungful of malt dust as well.
Well, yeah, it was nice. It was sweet on the tongue. Is what that dust was.
Lovely
so
dust.
yeah, what malt are we using? What malt is in your recipe?
We are using a malt that I've used many times before, as have yourself,
Yeah.
Cal. It's one called Marris Otter. It is a fairly traditional English pale malt that is used as basically a blank palette for the other malts to shine, or just to give it a nice sweet, biscuity, light, but not too biscuity, not like heavy biscuit.
No,
not
so,
like,
so you're saying it just works as a really good base malt
Yes.
because it doesn't add overly much kind of malt flavour to the beer.
No, not like a heavy dark malt. There is a little bit of malt flavour there. You're not going to get sort of away from that, I don't think.
No.
Whilst without adding lots of just pure sugar to a beer.
Yeah. And that's not something we're going to be doing today.
Not
Because
today.
we don't want it to be too dry, we don't want it to be too strong. And what's the hop?
The hop we've chosen to use today is a fairly well established. Well, it's very well established by this point, but it's only a couple of decades old. It's a hop called Cascade from America.
Yeah.
It's renowned for its big flavour, lots of sort of lemony citrus flavours, as well as grapefruit and all the standard ones that you see from the sort of new age American hops. But it was one of the first ones to start making a big name for itself.
Oh,
So-
awesome! So we've got quite a lot of that. We're not just using it for bittering, so we're not just using it for early kettle edition.
No.
We're I think planning on using it for some of the aroma, so a lot
So the
later
aroma,
on.
yeah, and the dry hopping
and
as
then,
well.
And then we're dry hopping with it as well, so it's just going to be Cascade
Yes.
right in your face all across the board.
Yep.
Do you happen to know what the alpha acids are?
It's quite low, Cascade, normally, especially compared to the sort of later New World hops.
Yeah.
The batch that I've got at the moment is 6.9%,
Okay. So
which is a little bit higher than normal for Cascade.
yeah,
as well.
so I mean, what's that going to put us at percentage-wise for bittering? Because obviously, like the lower the alpha acids, the less efficient it is at bittering.
Yeah, so we should probably go into a bit of detail about how that element creates flavour in the beer.
Yeah.
There is a certain chemical in the hops called alpha acids that the hop growers will record and make very sort of publicly available that number. And the flavour that the hops impart into the beer, the longer that it is boiled, that flavour gradually changes from a hoppy flavour to a much more just bitter finish flavour. Less flavour, more taste. No, what do I mean?
It's more that it's not a feeling,
No.
I guess. But I know what you mean, and I'm sure there probably is a great word for it.
Yes,
but it
bitter.
eludes us at the moment.
It's bitter.
It is, but that is a product of the boiling of the acid. So it's changing. It's changing from kind of one state to another, I believe, which is good because it means that you can use the same hop to create a variety of different flavours depending at what point you put it in the boil.
Yes.
So the earlier on in the boil, the more chance it has of imparting a bitterness, which is identified as normally an IBU.
Yes, that is International Bittering Unit.
Yeah, which is a great name because it's exactly what it says on the tin.
Everyone knows what it means.
Yeah.
And it is just a measure of how much alpha acid is in the beer, essentially.
Yeah, so obviously the higher alpha acid the hop, the less of it you need to add for bittering.
Yes.
Yeah, which is good. Now, I think it's about 10 minutes is how long it takes for it to lose the vast majority of its aroma, because it's not the alpha acids that provide really the aroma and flavour from the hops. I do believe it's a slightly different oil, and that oil has a tendency to just denature, or denature, is that the word I'm looking for?
I think so. Break down into, or change.
Yeah, it dissipates, so it loses that hop flavour, the aroma of those hops. So when you first open a bag of hops and you get that nice big smell, it kind of loses a lot of that. And I think it's about 10 minutes, which is why we have hop additions at like 5 minutes from flame out, which is the end of the boil. We're not using flames today.
No.
It's an electric kettle.
We'll get into that at some point, but
yeah, so I think that is why we're kind of adding it in so many different stages. And the good thing about this type of brew is it allows us to just identify how Cascade works and what it does.
Yeah, and that is essentially the whole point of a SMaSH brew, is focus on those elements and really just let them shine. Try and avoid complexity in exchange for massive intensity of those single ingredients. Emphasize the basics, really get to terms with them. We are also using a very simple yeast as well. It's one called USO5. It's renowned for not only quite a quick ferment, but also being very clean, very crisp, imparting very little flavour into the beer itself, allowing the raw ingredients we've used to shine. And I also believe we've done no water treatment today. That was a choice by me.
Yes.
I know Cal does normally treat his water.
I do normally treat the water depending on the style of beer I'm doing, but I thought today, as we're trying to aim for something really simple, really straightforward, it'd just be interesting to see how the Reading water holds up to this style of beer. And it should be quite interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had your water tested up where you live.
Not yet. I am fairly reluctant to do any water treatment.
Any reason in particular?
Well, partly laziness. I understand there are elements of water treatment that can make a difference.
Yeah.
But the results I've had without changing anything have been very good.
Okay.
So I know that if I wanted to make my beer that sort of 5% better...
Yeah. Water treatment will be the way forward.
That is always an option for me.
And the annoying thing with water treatment is, realistically, you should test your water
I should.
Well, every so often, like you should send it out to be analysed, because there's not something you can really do yourself easily. You need to send it off to a lab, and then they send you back a report. But yeah, so we're not doing that. We're just doing a real straightforward brew, and trying to keep things nice and simple, just so we can talk about it easily. Because obviously this is our pilot episode.
Simple.
Yeah. Now, actually, talking about the yeast, I did realise that we haven't actually reactivated the dry yeast yet, so it's probably not a bad idea if we go and do that.
Oh, let's go do that. Talking of Marris Otter, I've actually put aside a small amount from the brew itself.
A little shot glass of Marris Otter there, is it?
Lovely.
Oh, thank you very much.
Shove that in your face.
I will.
And crunch down.
Okay, well, I'll let you do your crunchy bit first, just so there's
I've already started.
Just so there's not like a few minutes of just me and you chewing on a bit of grain for everyone to listen to. So as entertaining as that is, it's probably not what we want.
It's a lovely flavour. I've done this many times with Marris Otter. It's lovely. It's sweet. It's got that really sort of delicious, big sort of white bread flavour that just fills your heart with joy. It may not be the most complex malt out there, but it's
just so good though, isn't it?
It's lovely.
It's sweet, and it's a nice clean taste. There's no, I don't know, there's no cloyingness to it. There's no clagginess, which you can get with some like really quite bitter taste sometimes with some of the malts, which can be
especially some of the darker malts.
Yeah, definitely. But
more, please.
Well, I mean, we'll put 4 kilograms of it in a big pot with loads of water.
We'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, you can eat that afterwards if you want. If you want to eat 4 kilograms of wet grain.
Lovely.
It won't be. It'd be horrible, mate.
Oh, yeah, I've eaten spent grain before. It's not pretty.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah, moving on. What we're going to move on to, Mike? What's next on our agenda? What would you like to talk about?
Beer ye. Have you heard the news about beer? The beer news.
What's the beer news?
Time. The beer news is, many of you may have heard, that Fuller's, the brewery, the famous brewery based in Chiswick in London, recently took over the well-established and well-regarded brewery Dark Star, based in Sussex.
Well, sorry, I was just having a drink of some beer there.
Yes, whoops.
I think it's acceptable entirely while we're talking about beer to be drinking beer. So, Dark Star, that's a bit of a shame. Like providing they don't change anything, and I can't see why they would want to change anything.
No.
It should be fine, because their last beer that we had on in our local, it was really good.
Yeah, I emphasised Dark Star beer, not Fuller's beer.
Yes, yeah.
It was called Cocoa Nut, I believe, and it was a chocolate hazelnut lactose porter.
Yeah, it was so good. I mean, that did not last long on tap.
Not at all. No, mostly because of us.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like providing Fuller's don't, I don't know, mess around with the recipes too much, and I can't imagine why they would, because one, they're not buying it for the name. They're not buying it for Dark Star's name. There'd be no point in them buying Dark Star's name and then changing their recipe, because Fuller's are already well established.
Yes.
They would have nothing to gain from buying somebody else's name. So it means that they like their product.
They like the beer.
And if you like the product and you know it sells well, why change it?
Exactly. I think one thing to not underestimate is, in the UK at least, Fuller's is quite a well-known brand.
Yes.
But internationally, as a UK brewer, Fuller's are very well-known. Their bottles do make it very far and wide.
Yeah,
internationally.
They do. Yeah.
Because they've got that big multi-million network.
Yeah, I mean, having a lot of money behind you really helps get your stuff out there, I find, which is why the stuff we're brewing will probably not make it beyond this house.
Indeed. But I believe that's one reason, not so that they can sort of advertise themselves in circles that Dark Star are, but they're not, because I don't believe that circle ever exists. What I think that they are trying to do is find a way to innovate their own product on that global market.
Yeah.
And they've seen the way that Darkstar sells. They've seen the way that people just love the stuff. Understandably, it's regularly great. It's often good.
Yes. Yeah.
I've only occasionally found a few that are fantastic, such as that cocoa nut, that if I see it anywhere again, I will devour.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment we're in a situation where we're spoilt for choice. So, 10 years ago when I was drinking ale and I'd go into a pub and I'd just be happy to see one or two hand pulls on the bar and I'd be like, oh, brilliant, I can get a pint. And I wasn't even really overly picky. I was just happy to have ale rather than something else.
From cask.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And now, because we're seeing such a rise of, hundreds and hundreds of breweries, like the quality has just ramped up. And, our local, I mean, they got 12 hand pulls on the bar alone. And then you've got 8 craft beers. Now, that's a lot of choice. And that kind of spoils you when you go to other places and you're like, oh, but they've only got this on, or they've only got
they've
that
only got
on.
6 cask ales on. Oh,
and
no.
it's from these brewers, and it's like, oh, and you try it and you're like, well, I mean, it's good. And the thing is 10 years ago, it would have been amazing. But now we're spoiled for choice. So the fact that Darkstar are producing beer that you are happy to drink on a regular basis, in my opinion, that makes them a good brewery.
Yes.
Because they are consistently putting out good beer and consistently putting out the same beer as well.
And that's one thing that the big money seems to like above all else is consistently good.
Yes. Yeah. If you can push out consistently good, yes, you might never crest into flat out outstanding.
No.
But flat out outstanding generally comes at a much higher cost, and when you're producing on the levels that they are, it's considerably harder. Because, today we're making 25 liters. We're making a small amount, which means that if you spent, I don't know, £5 on 100 grams of hops, you're like, oh, well, that's £5 on 100 grams of hops. But to scale that up to 70 odd thousand liters, or whatever a big brewery is pushing out, because it's a lot, that suddenly becomes a large amount of money, and you can't charge £3.50, £4 a pint anymore. You have to charge £7, £8 a pint, which is why craft beer, or whatever craft beer happens to be, you're looking at £6 a pint, £7 a pint, and it's because of the quantity and the quality of ingredients that are going into it are just that much higher, I find, than the more commercial breweries.
Yes, yeah, and I think specialising, especially on the consistency issue, is important as well, because it's very easy for, as homebrewers, or even as innovative, up and coming new breweries with only a sort of small market, a small but changing market, to change your recipes and never have to go back and do the same beer 10 times, and every single one of those times it be exactly the same. And that's something that Darkstar are good at. Yeah,
but that's it. And there is a skill to that, but it does come at a cost. And that is that they don't have the ability to just keep producing new and different beers all the time, because they get a core range and people expect to see that, and they want the consistency within that. They can't just produce it once and then go, okay, we're never doing that again.
That was fun.
Or
what's next?
If we do it again, it's different.
Yeah. And there's value in both approaches, I find.
There is. But I'm starting to get a bit parched here.
Oh.
In the old throat. I mean, I'm fresh out of beer, so I'm thinking maybe we take a quick break and then grab a beer and then carry on from there.
The new segment. Let's get a beer.
Let's get a beer. You brought us some beer.
Yes.
What
some
is
of
it?
my homebrew that I made a couple of months ago, so it is still quite fresh. Keeping in the theme of SMaSH beers, it's fairly difficult to find SMaSH beers unless you brewed them yourself.
Yeah.
So what I've tried to focus on today is other single hop varieties.
Okay.
It's rarer to get single malt than it is to get single hop.
Yeah, because I think a lot of brewers they want some of the other complexity to come from the malt rather than just the hop. So you're not regularly going to find like a single wheat or a single marris otter or a single, whatever other grain you may use.
So with that in mind, first up, I've got a single hop variety beer that I made a couple of months ago. It is called Only Warrior.
Okay. Is that because it's only got Warrior
Yes,
hops in it?
the hop that I've used is Warrior. Warriors, again, it's a fairly older, new world hop.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not a type of scar, is it?
No. But unlike the Cascade, it's got much higher alpha.
Yes, it does.
Much less in the way of
It's in the double figures, I believe, isn't it?
I think it's 16 point something.
Yeah, so I normally use Warrior for bittering. I've never used it as aroma, I don't think.
Yes, so this has a substantial amount of IBUs, obviously. I tried to minimise that as much as possible because I knew that the Warrior would give it a lot.
Yeah.
It's also got a huge amount of flame out hops and also dry hop. So we'll see what you think.
No, I mean, like initially, obviously, the colour of it is really good. I like that light golden look of it,
little orangey, but not.
Yeah. So what, like, I know where like the main focus here is on the hops, but what is actually the grain bill? Like what grain do you have in there?
It's fairly complex. Marris Otter was the base malt.
Yeah, so that's the largest quantity you've got in there.
About 60% was Marris Otter. There's also a hefty amount of oatmeal.
Okay, so that would explain the explain the haziness of it.
It is hazy. I never use finings.
No, I was going to say you don't find it.
No, it's been bottle conditioned for, as I say, about a month and a half, maybe 2 months. So none of that haze has fallen out, I think, due to the fact that it was so oatmeal heavy. One of the things that I didn't use, though, it was any type of crazy yeast. I kept it with the same yeast we're using today. It's USO5.
Yeah.
Again, trying to emphasise the flavour of the hops itself.
Okay. So, because USO5, just real crisp and clean fermentation, isn't it? That's primarily why we're using it. But no, it's the colour of it's good.
Yeah, on the nose, there's not too much aroma there.
It's not as full on in your face. It is very nice. It's a sort of thing like on a hot day. Like if you get a cold whiff of that, you'd be like, "Oh, well, that's going to be good." Because sometimes you get a strong smell, and you're like, "Oh, actually, I don't know. That sounds like it might be a bit too much."
It's warming without being distracting. Is one way of putting it, I guess.
Warming without being distracting, like a lump of hot coal in your pocket.
Lovely.
That'd be warming without being too distracting.
Yes.
Maybe that would be a bit too distracting.
But with the flavour,
it's nice. Like you can definitely taste that there's much more aroma than there is bittering. So I would say you probably haven't used a lot of bittering hops there, but I imagine you were trying to.
No, there was very, very small amount there.
Yes.
Small amount.
So it's not sweet. It's by no means a particularly sweet beer, especially not on the finish. I'd say if anything, it's quite a dry finish.
Yeah.
But the flavour of the hops comes more from like the aroma side of it rather than the bittering side of it.
Which I always like that.
Yeah.
And talking of the hop aroma, it is quite complex. I wasn't expecting that from Warrior. I am getting a few sort of spicy notes. Not anything overtly fruity, unfortunately, but sort of
it's good.
There's stuff going on there.
Yeah, I'm appreciating it. Like I say, I am getting a very. It's quaffable because of that dry finish.
Yeah.
Like once I'm done, I'm like, I need to take some more in.
I should have mentioned earlier, it's quite weak as well. It's 3.7,
Okay.
I believe. So, knock yourself out, drink a whole bottle.
As I stated before we started recording this, I have not eaten today.
So you probably will knock yourself out.
So I will probably try, because we've got a few other beers to try before we kind of finish this. And obviously we want to try the wort as well.
Yes.
Now, here's something. Wort, wort.
Wort, wort.
Wort, wort.
So, the ambiguity...
Should we make a decision?
The ambiguity here is that it is spelt W-O-R-T, but it's a Germanic word. So some argue that it should be pronounced wort.
Or vert.
Or vert. And some people just read it how it's written and say wort.
Yeah, so I personally would just say wort.
Oh, and what is wort? Or wort? Or vert?
Vert. Well, that is, as far as I understand it, that is the liquor you gather at the end of the mash. So once you've added water to grain, it ends up, sitting in the grain and mashing for a good amount of time. It draws all the sugars out and a lot of the flavours that come with it. And once you drain it off the grain, what you're left with is this really nice malty liquid full of sugar, and it's warm, it's good, and it's called wort or wort or vert, whichever one you want. I will personally, throughout the rest of this series, be calling wort. I will just be calling it wort because that's what I call it.
Yeah.
Are you choking on a bit of grain there, sir? This is what happens if you use grain as a bar snack.
Yeah.
Which is why we don't use grain as a bar snack.
Grain makes a really good bar snack. It doesn't make a good podcast snack.
It doesn't, no. And yet you're still shoveling it into your face. Fingertip at a time.
Just buy a bag of marris otter and just eat it.
And just crunch it down. So what word are you going to use? Are you going to use wort? Should we decide on the same word so that people aren't confused?
I don't know. I think I might try and attempt some type of hybrid. So it's somewhere in between wort and wort, and then everyone thinks I'm wrong.
Okay, and that word will be...
Wort. It just sounded like wort, didn't it?
It sounded like wort, but it sounded like, I don't know, someone had just kicked you in the knee and you said a word.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on whether you're a descriptivist or prescriptivist in your linguistics circles. But
yeah. Do you have a linguistic circle?
I prefer to be descriptivist about these sorts of things, and if the general population is moving towards wort rather than wort, then I don't mind jumping ship and coming along with them.
Okay. Well, if at any point people want to kind of chime in, I don't think we currently have a Twitter account or anything, because this is our pilot.
Yes.
Realistically, we don't know how this is going to sound. We will find out when we listen back.
Yes.
But at some point in episode 2, if episode 2 happens, then we will have hopefully a Twitter account. We probably have a Facebook thing going on. Some other sort of like media that is social, and then you can chime in. Send us a recording of you saying either wort, wort, vert, or however it is you say it, and we can take a general consensus and maybe we'll change
we'll do a vote. We'll do a poll, and
we're going to need a lot of listeners to do some sort of.
We're just going to do the
poll.
Things we do in the way we do them.
On a regular basis.
Yes, how about that?
And talking about things that we do in the way that we do them, should we go get another beer?
Another beer!
Yay!
Yeah. So, next up, we have another single hop beer. This time, the hop they've used is Simcoe. It's by Wiper and True, a brewery based in Bristol, and it is 5%.
So, I just want to have a quick look at the bottle.
Okay.
Classic elephant.
Classic elephant.
Yeah. Tells you nothing about the beer.
Well, it tells you that the beer is a mystery.
I mean, it says Pale Ale Simcoe. So, that tells us something. But it is just an elephant.
Cool.
Doing a handstand.
Yes. And for good reason.
Obviously, yeah. Now, the first thing I noticed about this beer is the colour of it.
Yes, it's much more peachy in
Yeah,
colour.
it is. It's a very peachy colour. Like, has it got a breakdown of the grain on the bottle?
I didn't see one.
Oh, no, there you
could
go.
be.
Malts. Extra pale barley.
Okay.
Flaked malted oats and
Okay.
wheat.
So they've used oats as well.
They have,
I think
well-
that's a fairly standard thing these days, especially with the rise of New England IPAs. Which
I've used oats. I've used wheat. And I've used extra pale barley. I've never had a rosé beer. Well, I mean, I've had them before, but I've never brewed one.
it's true. It's true.
Now-
Maybe there's something else they've done different.
Possibly. Now, the colour is enticing. The smell is fruity.
Yeah.
Really fruity. Now, you've just had a taste of it.
I did. I screamed ahead.
You did. What am I to expect?
So Simcoe's renowned for a bit more of your sort of stone fruit flavours. There's a bit of citrus going on, but just a lot more sort of tropical edge to it.
Yeah, no, I'm getting that. I'm getting some real tropical fruit.
Yeah,
It's really good.
yeah. It's nice and full. It's a well balanced hop of itself. That it doesn't feel very one dimensional.
No, I do, because obviously on their bottles they don't give any sort of like quantities or timings or anything like that.
No, it is
which-
fairly sweet.
It is fairly sweet. So, you know, like we can infer mash temperature from that and stuff like that. But you know, I don't think we realistically need to quite go into trying to dissect their recipe.
No, they've actually labelled the IBUs on the side here. I can see.
Yeah,
27 is very low.
it is, which tells me that they've just mainly used Simcoe as an aroma hop.
Yeah, that might be entirely from dry hopping as well.
Yeah, very well
might
could
just-
be. It very well could be. The thing is with dry hopping though is that's an expensive way of getting hops into your beer,
Yes.
because I've found through my experimentation that you can get a large quantity of what you want from your hop flavour rather than the hop flavour in the beer, rather than just on the nose. You get that from late edition hops and flame out.
Yeah.
So, like 5 minutes before the boil, before the end of the boil, or a minute before the end of the boil, or an 80-degree steep. You know, where you basically just bring the water down to 80 degrees after the flame's gone out, and you just sit it in there for 20 minutes while the water's at 80 degrees.
Delicious.
And that works really well for imparting, I find, the flavour, because you haven't got any of the boil going on, so you're not losing any of the hop oils.
No, you're not denaturing anything.
Exactly. Whereas dry hopping is really good for that as well, but you need to leave the hops in for like a week, because it's at a much lower temperature.
You don't have to.
Well, no, okay, yeah, you don't. But standard practice is that it is about 5 days.
Yes.
So a working week, not a full week. Actually, it depends how many days you work as to what
Yeah.
a working week is. But
I did used to dry hop for a full sort of 5 days.
yeah,
Then I can't remember much about the study, which I saw, which is terrible. I should remember
it's terrible, Mike.
who did it and why and whatnot.
I'm going to pause it, and you have to go away and learn it all again.
No, I'm just gonna say what I
Wing
remember.
it, just wing
and
it.
I'm just
Mike.
gonna wing it.
Wing it.
But the gist of it was that the nature of hops dry hopped at fermentation temperatures is very complex,
Yeah.
and certain compounds rise and fall, and certain compounds rise and stay risen, and some compounds just straight up fall down.
Yeah.
And there is a sweet spot where you maximize everything, and that is between 1 and 2 days,
Okay.
apparently.
Yeah.
And that's at certain temperatures. So what I tend to do now is dry hop 1 day before I crash cool.
Right. Okay.
And so you get that maximum flavour, and then the temperature plummets, and it's basically in stasis.
Okay.
So-
I mean, for those people who, because I'm assuming that there's going to be some people listening to this who aren't necessarily brewers, which is why it's always good for us to kind of clarify the terms that we mean. So crash cooling, I'm fairly certain most people can work it out, but that's essentially where you've taken a beer that was fermenting, and we tend to ferment. Well, I personally tend to ferment at about 18 degrees Celsius.
16, 17, sometimes 18.
And you drop once fermentation is finished. So once the yeast has done its job of turning the wort into beer, you then drop the temperature. I normally drop it down to about 4 degrees. I don't know if you go lower than that.
3, I think.
Okay. So
that's what I keep my fridge at indoors.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So you drop that temperature down, and what that essentially does, that essentially puts the yeast to sleep, and then it drops out of suspension. Or at least that's the plan. And it basically just falls to the bottom, collects at the bottom in some sort of sludge, which you inevitably pour down the sink, toilet, or drain. Or you can reuse it. You can entirely reuse it as long as you wash it first.
You have to wash it?
If you're wanting to store it, yes.
Okay.
If you're just wanting to repitch back onto it, you can just pour another load back on.
I've heard people
back on.
That slurry at the bottom is sometimes referred to as a yeast cake, which is delicious.
Is
Maybe.
it?
No.
Have you hold on. Let's just rewind this. Have you actually taken a slice of this yeast cake and consumed it?
No. I think I should.
Okay.
No, I don't think I should.
No, I don't think you should. It sounds like a terrible idea.
I think my guts will never forgive me.
Oh,
maybe after a couple of days.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it as a charity thing.
Yes.
At some point, we'll feed you a slice of yeast cake. You can make bread with it, though. I have done that. Yeah, I have used the yeast from not all of it, obviously, just a part of it, to make a yeast cake out of. Not a yeast cake, more a loaf of bread.
Yeah, yeast bread.
Yeast
loaf.
bread. Beer bread.
Cake. Bread.
Yeah.
Hooray.
Bread. Anyway, we ramble on.
Yes. So I've heard of people pitching straight onto this yeast cake.
Yes.
So you basically pour the beer straight out of the boil that you've then cooled down.
Yeah.
Onto that yeast cake, and then you don't have to add any more yeast. It's already there.
Which is good.
Lovely.
So yeah, that is essentially crash cooling.
Yes.
That's how we got onto this whole Mike's going to eat a yeast cake.
There was another term that I thought it would be good to clarify. We use it a lot. It's dry hopping.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit actually ambiguous, but it essentially means that you add more hops in post-fermentation into the fermenter, and they impart a slightly different flavour than you would if you'd done it before. And that's basically it.
Interesting.
You don't have to sanitize anything either, because hops themselves are slightly disinfectant.
Yes, yeah, that is true. So that kind of helps.
Just bung them in.
So, I mean, we digress slightly on that. That is the Wiper and True.
Yes, Wiper and True.
Now, we are currently sat on, I reckon, probably about 35 minutes into this podcast. So, how many more beers do we have to try? I mean, when I say we have to try, we want to try them. But I mean have to try.
We've got an option.
Okay, what is that option?
We can do one more or two more.
Right. Well, I'm thinking if we do one more, and then, in the next episode, we can always recap what we thought of the last one. But that will give us time to also have a quick try of what the wort is like at the end of the boil. So we finish mashing now. Mashing in has finished. Not the podcast, just...
Yes, we are mashing in. We are never finished.
Exactly, never.
Yes, tireless. So
we're done that. We're now in the boil phase. So we're waiting to bring everything up to boil before we can put our first hop addition in. So I think... Go get another beer, and we'll try that. We'll see how the temperature's doing, and then we'll be back with our last beer tasting, and then we'll just do a quick bit on how the wort's tasting and looking. Hopefully, give you an original gravity to work with, and that will be us.
So we're aiming for the beer to be about 4.2% here.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Well,
we'll see. That's irrelevant now.
It is. It is.
Thanks,
Mike. Let's go get some more beer, shall we?
Okay.
Okay. Right. So my kitchen had turned into some sort of swampland. It started boiling a long time before we actually realised.
Yes.
So we're 5 minutes late on our hop edition, but that's going to be a negligible thing. But it did allow us time to grab some beers. So I have got Arbor's Simcoe.
Yes.
So it's single hop. I left them all in the kitchen.
It's all right. It's the same hop as the Wiper and True.
Yeah.
So you should.
But I don't know whether or not there's a grain bill on there. Now, what I'm noticing from the colour is it is a slightly, reddish colour, but it's a lot more golden. On the aroma, it's not as forward with the fruity, I don't find. It is still there, but it's not quite as pronounced. Flavour-wise... Right, okay, so this to me is much drier.
Yeah. Straight up, you don't get that.
It's much
sweetness.
more bitter as well. So I think they've put a lot more emphasis on the bittering side of this hop, rather than the fruity. It's not as forward fruity as the Wiper and True one was.
Yeah,
it is still very good.
Very
now,
nice.
I have had this on cask, and I was very impressed. I was very impressed. And on bottle, it is still not disappointing.
No, no.
But again,
I think it does suffer from that thing where beers in cask tend to emphasise the sweetness and the rounder and softness.
Yeah, I mean, a large part of that is due to the temperature it's served at and stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously they are aiming for this to be drank out of a bottle, so they will be aiming for specific flavour profiles to be coming out. Because the temperature that is served at really does change that. And also level of carbonation really changes it. What I noticed with the Wiper and True one is it didn't seem as carbonated as the Arbor Simcoe is.
No.
So whether that was a conscious decision or whether or not that was just down to bottle conditioning or what, I'm not really sure. But what I am getting from this, it's nice. It's got that bitterness, it's got that crispness, but it does have that fruitiness from it, which is...
Yeah,
it's very different to the Wiper and True one. And if you gave me, I mean, you have given me these two beers, to directly compare, and they are different.
They are,
despite the fact that they're using the same hop. Now, I'm not sure what the grain profile is, but I don't think that will have made that much of a difference. I wouldn't have said
it's not anywhere near as hazy, so I doubt there's anywhere near as much oatmeal in it.
No, probably not. Which definitely will affect the mouthfeel and a lot of the other flavours. But yeah, that's the Arbor Simcoe. Now we're gonna take a run at both of these beers. So Mike's gonna tell you about the other one. What have you got there, Mike?
I have by Wild Weather Brewery.
Sorry, to what now?
It's a Wild Weather Brewery.
Okay, nailing it every time.
Yes, I'll do it all again.
You'll get it. Okay, so we've got Wild Weather Brewery.
Wild Weather Brewery. So we have Wild Weather Brewery did a beer called Hero Factory, which is a single hop with Equinox. It's a fantastic hop that used to be called Equinox, but apparently there was some trademark dispute or something, copyright. I don't know which one of the issues. The lawyers got involved, and they had to change the name to Equinox with a K, not a Q. But let's give it a go.
Yeah.
Before we do, it is much stronger. The other beers have all been 5 and below.
Yeah.
This one in particular is 7%.
Ooh.
So
now, I've got a little bit of it here as well, so I'm going to try. But Mike is going to tell you more about it.
Wow.
Than I will.
That is smooth. That is really silky smooth.
Oh, it smells like really heavy pineapple.
Yeah.
It looks like pineapple juice as well.
Yes.
It genuinely looks like a pineapple juice.
It is by far the haziest beer we've had today. It is thick. It is luscious.
Yeah, that's viscous.
Viscous.
There's the word.
Pulpy.
Pulpy.
Yes. The stereotype for talking about New England IPAs is juicy.
Yeah.
So it is that. Yes, good. There's probably a lot more oatmeal in there. There's some very funky yeast going on, but just everything coordinates fantastically to just make this beer silk.
They have nailed that. I've just had a quick little try of it because obviously I'm drinking the Arbor Simcoe and I'm really enjoying it. But that I've just tried. Oh my god, well, it's just a different beer, isn't it? I'm not saying it's better.
Different. Yeah,
it's just different.
One thing that I do feel about it, a counterpoint is that I don't feel it showcases.
Put that Maris Otter down.
Okay.
Put that Maris. Stop eating the Maris Otter.
I don't feel it showcases the Equinox as well as, say, the Wiper and True showcased the Simcoe.
Yeah.
The Wiper and True, that was the intense flavour of Simcoe, and there was very little else other than sweetness. Whereas this is a fantastic beer, and you get a lot of Equinox, but it just doesn't seem to... It's more balanced, and I like that, but the extent is less spotlight.
Well, yeah, that's it. Like, again, we don't know the grain profile on this, and that grain profile has a tendency to hide or mask the flavours that hops can bring, which is why we've today decided to do the SMaSH, was so that we could get rid of the need to hide the hop, but also to make sure that the hop isn't masking the flavour of the grain. Now, what would be interesting is doing the same grain quantity, the same grain bill, with a different hop, and seeing whether or not the hop we've used today masks too much of the hop.
Maris Otter.
Yeah, the grain profile. Because obviously, as one can interact with the other can interact the other way.
So we've tried a lot of beers. There's only one more beer left to try, and that is the Wort. How does it taste?
Yeah, it tastes good.
Hey,
oh, bye.
Bye.